America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker, the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation. And today we are joined by the great Lee Greenwood. Lee is a Grammy Award winner of seven number one hits, and he has sold over 25 million copies worldwide and is, of course, best known for the legendary song, God Bless the USA, which he'll be performing at the second JCN Freedom Fighters Summit and Gala, May 1st and 2nd in Savannah, Georgia. You can get your tickets now at jcn2025summit.com. Lee, welcome to Main Street Matters.
Thank you. Great to be talking to you. You know, it's funny, the title of your program. We work a lot of towns all across America, and many of them have a square in the center with sometimes a statue of something that was important to the community from the past. And that to me is like middle America. But to tell you the truth, Main Street is anywhere from New York to Texas, Seattle to Miami. I mean, it's just, you know, Americans are Americans, and we meet them in all forms of the culture. And I'm proud of your program for how broad reaching it is with all Americans.
Yeah, we started the program, you know, we focus on small business. They're the heartbeat of America, right? In small towns across the country. There's, you'd be surprised. There's 33 million small business owners in this country, and they employ more than 60 million people. So before we ever count their dependents, that's 90 million people, 93 million to be exact, dependent on the success of small business. And that's a lot of people. When you consider this country is 300 million, 350 million people, that's a third of the country dependent on small business, not massive corporations, small business. And then you think about their children, you know, and their dependents in general. It's a lot of people when you start thinking about
the families that support small business are all involved. I don't know, because I was raised on a farm with my grandfather and I decided not to be a farmer. The father and son businesses are less and less, but in most small businesses, the family is involved. So when you're talking about the outreach of someone who has a cobbler business or a small bakery, you're going to get a lot of the family members who are involved in that.
Where did you grow up?
Sacramento, California, on a sharecropper's farm, raised by my grandparents.
Okay. So you decided not to be a farmer, but how did you find your way to music?
Well, that's kind of easy when you have to get up at dawn and go to bed at dusk and you work all day long. And for the moment the sun comes up till it goes down. It's not that I didn't mind the hard work. My grandfather was particularly proud of me as an athlete and a musician, but I had my farm chores, and my mother was working all the time because my father joined the Navy right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and they were divorced. So in order for her to keep my sister and me fed, she had to ship me off to the farm. And I was okay with that. I had love. And even though I didn't know either one of my parents very well, it just was a great growing up life. And I learned a lot about life early on. Left home at 17 and went to Nevada and was there 20 years before my career really took off in Nashville, Tennessee. So the farm life is good. We have two sons. Kim and I have been married 33 years now, and Dalton and Parker are both college graduates. So I can't argue with the system, but I really wish they had the kind of life I had growing up where you can get your hands in the dirt. You know, there's something special about gathering fruit and almonds and walnuts off the trees and berries and apples. There's a little something special about that.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. God Bless the USA has become your signature song. You wrote it in 1984. Did you ever imagine that it would have this huge resurgence, around, sort of national issues like the Gulf War, 9/11, and of course, it's become the theme song for every event that Donald Trump held.
It's not a short answer. I have to tell you that I've been a musician since I was 12 and a singer. Left for Nevada early, spent 20 years there, and my writing was sort of sketchy. It's the least of my talents. And when I got to Nashville and started writing for myself and for other artists, we had several hits by other artists and then several of my own. And as the albums kept coming and they were quicker and quicker, and we had to work 300 some days on the road the first 3 years, there was very little time for really introspect or even though those are my creative years, I was just working. And just like my parents, work, work, work. My grandparents, work, 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 make a living, stay ahead of the wolf. But somewhere along the way, in my writing, and I'd written several of the songs for those albums, those early 15 or so albums that we had on MCA, I found the time to write God Bless the USA. And it was in my bus because that's where I had to do all my writing. I had no time to go home and write with the publishing company. And I remember delivering the song to Pat Hignan, who was the MCA Music song pitcher in Nashville. And he had said, I need a song for Kenny Rogers. And I wrote that. And it was called A Love Song, went #1 for Kenny on his album. And then about a week later, when I brought God Bless the USA to him, he said, well, we'll put this in a catalog. And I talked to my producer, Jerry Crutchfield, about the album that year, which was a 1984 or 5 album called You've Got a Good Love Coming. And we already filmed the video with it. And so God Bless the USA was never intended to be a single off that album. It was only by the direction of Irving Azoff, who was the president of MCA Music, Universal, and the recording and the film company, who actually heard the song, heard the album when we played it for them. And he made the call to release God Bless USA before the title song, Got a Good Love Coming. Now, having said that, remember that I worked Reagan's campaign. I worked both Bush presidents' campaigns. So I figured that God Bless the USA had served itself well. It was a military anthem. I think it served the military well. And I was in my living room with my wife, Kim, with my feet up on the coffee table when I was watching a rally with President Trump. And I heard God Bless USA before he walked out. Imagine my surprise when again, my song has served him and the nation. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Very much so. And it resonates across all age groups. As I mentioned earlier, you sang at our first Freedom Fighters Summit and Gala in November of 2023. And my 19-year-old daughter then, of course, she knew the song and couldn't wait to meet you and we've got a great picture of you and her together. But it just, again, all age groups, it resonates. There's a feeling. People were crying when you sang that song at our event.
You know what's interesting? I get videos all the time from parents who send me their 6-year-old or their 8-year-old that's singing God Bless USA, waving a flag. That's important because it's not just the song. It's the feeling of patriotism that's instilled in the young people early enough to understand what the price is. And it's the price of our military, all citizens who work for the betterment of the country. And they need to know that lesson. They need to know it early. So I'm just really proud that song, after 4 generations, has still served some great purpose.
I think it's true. I think the patriotism is so important. When my daughter was still in high school, was she in high school? Like 9th grade, so early high school. We watched a movie called Taking Chance, which is the transport. Kevin Bacon stars in it. And it's the transport of the remains of a private who's killed. And it's the process that goes with taking the remains to the family and the formality of it going on the airplane, the flag draped casket. And so we watched that. It's amazing. It's so emotional to see. And when we were finished, she was in tears. And I said, it's a pretty good movie. I mean, this is real. This is a true story. And she said, that's not it, Mom. She said, There's no patriotism in the schools. Like the kids don't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, and they don't have to. It's optional. And she said, how many? And I said, how many kids stand up? And she said, two, me and another girl.
Well, it's sad to think that patriotism is paid by each generation in blood. Generally, it's a war. I don't believe we'll have too many more ground wars with boots on the ground and where soldiers are killed. It's turning out to be more of a computer war. And I think when children who are in high school or college don't recognize the threat that another country might make on our country and threaten our freedom, I think they're nonchalant about it. And I think that's why the kind of frivolous attitude about, well, I know the flag is there and it flies over the Capitol and I know they're protecting our shores. God bless the Coast Guard. I don't know that they really understand that it has to be something in their fiber. Listen, every country that I've ever visited, the people of that country are proud of their country. They're proud of their flag. They have the same kind of patriotism for their country as we do for ours. America's different. America has supported all the other countries and protected them from demise and from villains who would take their freedom away. So we're very special. We're very different. The red, white, and blue and the stars have to be respected so much more, I think, than any other country, because we stand for their freedom as well. So I get it. I understand the kids are kind of, easy with that, but not my kids. I mean, they know hand over the heart if you're not military. If you're military, it's the salute. And you probably noticed that when I sing for the president, even though I'm not military, I tend to salute him just because I'm saluting the office of the president, not just that man. And giving respect to the White House and the Congress and those who control our future.
Were you in Butler, Pennsylvania, when the assassination attempt was made?
No, but I was there for the return in Butler. And the first crowd was probably 8,000 or so. The second crowd was about 40,000, showing support for the president who, could have been killed that afternoon. And I was proud to go back. I wish I'd been there the first time, but on the other hand, nobody wants to get shot at. So I was actually in D.C. for the inauguration, and I had an occasion leaving one of the afternoon luncheons to meet the wife of the man that was killed, the fireman that was killed when he threw himself over his family and took a bullet in Butler. And that was a tragic, just a real embracing moment where I didn't know what to say because I'm not a government employee, but I just said, on behalf of the nation, thank you for your husband's sacrifice, protecting you and your family. That's like all I could say.
Yeah, just a pivotal moment for the nation in that campaign, obviously for that poor family. But yeah, he did. He sacrificed himself for his family. It's what we do as Americans as well. But it must have been pretty amazing coming back to Butler with that kind of energy afterwards. Did you see a changed Donald Trump too?
If I say yes, that might be taken wrong. He had the same confidence when he strode on stage. Is that the right word? Strode, when he walked on stage. And the same respect for me and my song, for the audience. His demeanor may be a little less aggressive, but he was still firm and proud and defiant. And so I'm like, yeah, that's my man.
To me, just watching him, now I've never met him in person, but watching him, the before and after, it's not a negative when I say, did you see somebody change? I felt like he was just that much more grateful for every minute. And you could just see his gratitude. And, I know he loves this country, and I know that that's first and foremost on his mind, but to me, he was different. And
as you noticed at the RNC in Milwaukee directly after that, when I introduced him to the audience, there was a deliberate slowness to his movement. It was not his normal quickness and jubilant attitude. And even his son, who was in the box with him when he and Vance-elect at that time both got into the box, and I'm standing directly across the arena looking at him. And I noticed that Junior was kind of looking around, not usually like shaking hand with Dad. Man, this is great. We're going to be president and vice president. But he was seriously looking around the audience for any possible threat for his father. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he just seemed, like I said, just gratitude. And I mean, look, when you come that close, if he hadn't turned his head,
yeah, just slightly.
I don't even, I mean, my dad's favorite saying was always, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. But I mean, talk about having luck that day, or obviously God on your side. I mean,
well, I think the shooter was kind of nervous because the policeman that came to the rooftop and addressed him, he turned the rifle around, pointed it at the cop. The cop fell off the ladder, fell back downstairs, or whoever was holding him up. And as he swung the gun back into position, the president was moving rather quickly, looking around, and I don't think he had time to focus. He just quickly laid it down, sighted, and pulled the trigger. And at that point, I think that may have been one of the issues that probably saved the president's life, because he wasn't really zeroed in, didn't have the time to focus really quickly, and just started shooting. And so that might have been a factor as well. But the president was moving quite quickly at that moment, looking around from side to side. And again, let's just turn and say this was God's intervening, saving his life.
Hi, everyone. I want to personally invite all of you to come to JCN's second Freedom Fighters Summit and Gala on May 1st and 2nd in beautiful Savannah, Georgia. This event is going to be a who's who of conservative political figures. Media stars like Hugh Hewitt, Sarah Carter, Trish Regan, and Mike Gallagher will be joined by political minds like Kellyanne Conway and Steve Moore, as well as Governors Glenn Youngkin from Virginia and Brian Kemp from Georgia. You'll also get to meet yours truly and Alfredo Ortiz, the hosts of Main Street Matters, and many of our past guests. There'll be great entertainment too, from the comedy legend of Rob Schneider to music by country superstar Lee Greenwood. There's a limited number of seats, so reserve your spot today. Go to jcn2025summit.com and use promo code JCN2025 BOGO50 to get a second ticket at 50% off. Again, go to jcn2025summit.com now and use promo code JCN2025 BOGO50 to get a second ticket at 50% off. And get your tickets before they sell out.
And how has, you're very recognizable, and, people recognize you with also being part of the campaign that led to his second election. They saw you at almost every event. How has that influenced your life or affected your life in any way?
Well, like I said, this is the fourth president that I've actually performed with on campaign. So I don't know that much has changed, because after President Trump's term in office, we're going to move on with democracy and hope for the next president to do the same. So my main focus basically is raising my sons with the right attitude. My wife and I, are enjoying our life together. Both of us have small businesses, if you will. And it just, I don't know that anything has changed for me. Once the negative stopped, which there was an awful lot supporting the president, once that stopped, it was kind of go back to business as usual. So I'm still performing and probably will throughout the next year or so. So I'm just confident that if we can keep this nation united and focused upon MAGA, if you will, I know there's a lot of negative about that, but making America great, I mean, what's wrong with that? And it's been a rather quick adjustments to the president's tariffs, in and out, and with the latest easing on China again. Maybe things will pick up and be positive, but it's been a little scary because I went to the grocery store the other day and the prices are pretty up there. And I feel bad for people who have to take the brunt of that while we fix the tariffs. And they said that early on, is that there's going to be a little bit of pain here as we level out the rest of the world taking advantage of the United States. But as soon as we get this leveled out, things will be okay. And I'm confident it will, as soon as egg prices come down.
Yes, exactly. Well, we did see inflation come down last month, which was the first time we've seen it actually decrease. But you got 4 years of increases, 21% increase. Energy was sky high. I mean, the minute he came in, the thing that he kept saying that made so much sense to us and our small business owners is he was going to tackle energy. And because that's the root of all of it, right? You bring down the cost of energy, you bring down the cost of life in general. So, declaring a state of emergency on energy and beginning to remove all the red tape on the domestic energy production, it's going to bring down the cost of gas, the cost of oil, everything. And frankly, what I noticed the other day is that a barrel of oil is down to like $68. It might be different today, but it was about $68 a barrel. That's like a sale compared to when Biden was in office and he was depleting all of our national reserves. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the administration looks at possibly refilling those reserves because it's so inexpensive again per barrel.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably a move they will make. It's also, and I know people are a little resistant to the fact we have so much coal reserves, but coal has been so damaging to the environment. But it's awfully important as well. And I think if you're going to have a good balance of energy, you're certainly going to need a little bit of the coal. We also need nuclear. And as we move to rebuilding 3 Mile Island and a few the others with more safer nuclear reactors, it has to come online because of the data centers and what do they call cyber mining? What do they call that? Crypto mining. Yep. Those centers are just sapping energy out of the electric grid. So we have to support the electric grid coast to coast, and we're going to need nuclear. There's no way we cannot have that. But I think they're all concerned, and I know Trump is concerned about the energy balance. And I agree with you. Fill up the oil reserves. Let's prepare for what may be the next step. We do have an awful lot of oil. I mean, more than Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Russia. We have an awful lot of oil. And so balancing using it right now, but also bringing oil prices down is a really smart thing to do.
I agree. And our small business owners we poll small business owners nationally just to find out how they're feeling about the economy, their businesses, the direction, everything. And in spite of the narrative, even with, the tariffs and everything going on, in spite of the narrative in the media, small businesses are very optimistic right now. And it is because of the future. It is because of the deregulatory and pro-energy policies of the Trump administration. They're positive because they lived through it before in the first term. And so they feel good about what he can do because of what he did do.
Mm-hmm. I know that the biggest problem for most small businesses, just like big businesses, is supply chain. However, with bringing manufacturing back to the United States and having more jobs for American workers and making things we need here and then export here, that's what's going to lift up America in the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So I have one last question. You mentioned that you heard your song at one of his events on TV and you thought, oh my gosh, is there a story, like a funny story about how they connected with you and how this all came to be, how the Trump campaign connected with you?
As you know, I was at Trump's inauguration on 2016. And so that was at the Lincoln Memorial. And that was the second time I was there for a president. The first was 41, George Bush. So once, as I said, the negative stopped. When 2020, he did not resume office for the next 4 years. There was that lull for a while. And I figured that God Bless USA would do what it's always done, serve America, serve our military. And the conversation that started when he began using my song for his entrance to any rally, any speaking engagement. Then it was like I started getting requests from the media. Well, did you say yes? Did you say no? Did they ask you? There was never that conversation. I know that seems odd, but I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian, and I just felt it was the right direction. And not that I use my stage when I perform to tell people what they are, who I am. I was proud that he used my song. I never said yes, I never said no. I just appeared for the president when he asked me.
Well, we thank you so much for sharing that song with us. Like I said, it transcends generations. My kids love it. I love it. And I'm looking forward to hearing it at our summit next week, May 2nd at our gala. Can't wait to see you. And before we go, can you tell us about your website and also tell us about your God Bless the USA Bible that you have for sale?
I'm glad you asked that. One of the things I think is the greatest threat to America is illegal immigration. And as you know, or may not know, several years ago, I was asked to put God Bless USA in the welcome film for new immigrants, to become citizens in the United States. So I had a friend who had a citizen, had just been, and he brought him to my house. And we sat down and talked, him and his wife. They were from Germany. And he saw our family Bible laying on the table. And next to it is a small version of the Constitution that I have laying next to it. And he said, I know a lot about your country. He said, I studied the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights before I became a citizen. He said, it took me 7 years. And he said, I know how the country got started with religion. He said, we've always had a fight about our religion and our country. It's nice to have the freedom here to worship as I choose. He said, wouldn't that be fantastic if the Constitution and the Bible was together? I'm like, ding, ding. And at that moment, we decided to produce the God Bless USA Bible that does have those documents included in the back of the Bible. It's the King James Version. It comes in several colors, but it's a Holy Bible. And it says right on the front, God Bless the USA. And I have my handwritten lyrics copied in the book as well. These are all to the rear of the Bible, not in the middle of the gospel. And so the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Pledge of Allegiance. And so those documents makes this Bible very special. It's available on GodBlessTheUSA.com or LeeGreenwood.com, my website, and it'll get you a tab that you can buy it from. It's very well priced. It's beautiful to hold. GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Well, Lee, thank you so much for joining us, taking the time to join us on Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts and watch the show on YouTube and Rumble. Just search for Job Creators Network. Don't forget, we want to see you for the second JCN Freedom Fighters Summit and Gala, May 1st and 2nd in Georgia. Get your tickets at jcn2025summit.com. And bye for now.